All right, I would like to welcome everyone to the Monday, February 12th meeting of the Pine Bluffs Town Council. Will everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. I think we're going to put item 2 next under new business. Item 2 under new business is a Pine Bluffs Police Department K-9 discussion. Oh, we can go in order. No, yeah. No, you're good. Let's do yours.
Okay. So I'll start off giving my 2 cents, and then I'm going to pass it off to Sergeant Kemp and Officer Miller. I'm in full support of getting a K-9 in town for a multitude of reasons. Number one, the safety of town, citizens, getting drugs off the street. It's a very good recruitment and retention tool, though. That's my biggest plot point with a small town. With the big city, it's just another tool in a small town like we are. Not only is it a tool, but it's also recruitment and able to retain better, more qualified officers. So I'm in full support of it. It's something that I wanted to, and Kim can attest this, asked her when I was first hired, if this would be, getting a K-9, because knew Matthew was very interested in it. Having something fall in our lap this quick, I think, was unexpected, but it's very encouraging that we have places in Wyoming that are willing to help us out, which is great. For that, I'll pass it off to Sergeant Kemp.
I have been looking for a few years, and I had dogs and stuff like that here and there. And then I reached out to Rain Defense, and I asked them, what's the price of their dogs, because I seen them online, and they're like, dogs $13,000. The class would have been $4,500, and then there's the stay and all that stuff that's going to cost us for an officer to be there and for the schooling. So they dropped $500 off the schooling, and then they called me up and said, hey, we'd like to donate a K-9 to a small agency, and we think your agency would be awesome for that, because you're right on 80, close to 80, you're on 30, and we catch this runway in through from Wyoming to Nebraska, which there is quite a bit of drugs that come through here. All you have to do is look at the height of what the Highway Patrol does every year, and it's pretty high for drugs. And I mean, not only drugs, we could get money, because usually what's associated with drugs, money, guns, we get them all off the street out of criminals' hands, So I think us having a K-9 would be totally awesome. And I think you guys all got a copy of the picture of the dog. He's also can track. He can track for, like, a kid gets lost or something like that. He's trackable. he can track them down, you know, and stuff like that. Hopefully, you know, can't guarantee everything. Not even the bloodhounds can guarantee everything, you know, that go out and cadaver dogs, you know. So I think it's a good opportunity for town of Pine Bluffs, and I discussed it with Matthew and asked him about being the canine handler, if we were able to get it, and everything was a go. And he said, yeah, I have to talk to my wife, I have to talk to my landlord, he says, because I got a couple animals. So basically, he did all that, and I went out and I've talked to different agencies and got donations. I think we got, if I add it all up right, I think we got like 3,500 so far that we got, that I know is coming in. It's not all here yet, but I know that's coming in. So, and then there's another one that the chief was working on, Tallgrass. They doing a grant, and I think they said like up to $5,000, wasn't it? So, I mean, that would be about 8,500. That would more than cover us for the class and the schooling and all that stuff and the stay. But I just think it would be good because it's a single-purpose dog instead of a dual-purpose. Dual-purpose dogs are for attack and stuff like that to help the handlers out. We don't really need that liability, you know, because it can be a liability having a dual-purpose dog. Because if they bite somebody, then you're liable for that and all that stuff, you know. There's a big difference. So, and this is strictly just drugs, and I think I'd appreciate it if you guys all voted for it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Chance, are you on a pretty tight schedule? Maybe we can move back and then we'll finish this up.
Okay. Switch to.
That's all right. Huh?
Switch to the MOU?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like to visit the MOU discussion with the sheriff's department.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Chance Walkman, the Undersheriff of the Laramie County Sheriff's Office. And I apologize, Sheriff Kozak couldn't be here tonight. He is out of town at a training. What you have before you is an MOU. That's an agreement with us and the police department. Over the last year, the sheriff has been very impressed with the police department and the actions from the agency. They've gone a long way improving their professionalism, absolutely. And I think your item number 2 has kind of shown that too. They're growing the department in ways that just haven't been done in recent years with, you know, the advancement of the K-9 program, having your full-time officers and such of that. The agreement basically is twofold. It helps us and it helps you. I would have always have loved to have this agreement in place when I was working here. What it would allow them to do is basically enforce state law outside of their jurisdiction and within Laramie County. This is highly advantageous as it would give them the opportunity to chase down the criminals that commit crime here outside. And so we've known just from our history that crime that happens here also happens in Cheyenne and Burns. And while they might not be able to go across the border to Kimball, they do have that working relationship with the Kimball chief as well. But again, it allows them to go, say we have a gas drive off and they head west on the interstate. They're able to pursue those folks, cite them and arrest them on those state charges. If there's burglaries that happen in your jurisdiction and those felons leave, they're able to also pursue those individuals and arrest them. And so it really does help out the Pine Bluffs Police Department in enforcing the laws and enforcing justice that for the incidents that happen here within your town. For us, it does help us out too. Obviously, that they're available. If in the instance that we needed some assistance, they could provide help outside the jurisdiction as well. And obviously that's a benefit to us. So with our call volume and everything else. On a side note too, just off topic, but just in the area of the relationship and how it's grown, it has grown significantly. We trust the chief and his abilities and his officers quite a bit. And so in that, our relationship just informally, as far as sharing resources, has grown. We've invited them to train with us on our monthly trainings. We have that twice a month. It's just another opportunity for us to work together to build our relationship and then just provide just better quality service overall to the citizens of Laramie County. So if there are any questions, I'm here to answer any, but that is kind of the gist of what that MOU does for us and for your citizens. So.
I guess the question I would have would be, it seems maybe a little more likely that our officers would be helping your officers because of the distance that your officers have to travel to this end of the county. How are we responsible for total reimbursement for the time that's invested?
So, are you responsible for reimbursement, or would you invoice us basically if we did a call, or?
If our officers are taken out of town on calls for the
Yes.
for the county, then they're not on duty here.
Right.
Are we paying for, is the town paying for their salary when they're responding to calls out in the county?
So ideally, that's really on the individual officer to, instruct or just to communicate with us that they're not able to do that. And so, we're not asking for them to take calls, 1 mile outside the city limits or anything like that. Basically, this is just in the opportunity that they are available and they say that they're available, that they could take those calls. The biggest, truly, the advantage to this, though, is that extended authority that they would have within the county. Otherwise, it probably will work both ways as far as helping and assisting, with calls that we'll send out officers to back up yours, and then vice versa. Those guys coming out and assisting us if there's a call, just outside the city limits. Most of those calls are going to be on the highway, and so that would just defer to Highway Patrol, and on anything that's on Interstate 80. And then if there's anything else, we basically ask them to be the first officer on scene, ensure safety, and then as soon as our officers respond, that they could leave and go back to their duties. So really, it's just about expediting emergent response, and then at that nature, they would not be there to collect evidence or pursue the investigation any further than what they did on their initial response. And so the amount of time that would be spent is probably marginal to what would be received on the back end.
Yeah, understand.
I'd like to add on that. I don't think it'd be any different than what we're already doing now. This just gives some, it adds to the relationship, but it adds to kind of the burn shooting is a really good example. I'm not gonna just sit on my hindquarters and not look for this guy. So I drove out of my jurisdiction to look for him. And under that, we're covered under emergency doctrine, but having this makes it a little more concrete when it gets into court. So I'm not gonna, we're not gonna go investigate domestic assaults and burns. That's not what this is for. It's mainly to strengthen our relationship, but also make sure that, we're good in court as well. Kind of the legalese about it.
I understand.
So,
I'm in total favor of this.
Yeah.
I just was thinking about, well, what if this became very one-sided and our officers were responding to sheriff's department calls, regularly, and the reverse was not true? I just thought it might not be equitable for the town to support that burden entirely.
Sure, absolutely.
There is a provision in here, I can't find it but there is a provision where if we were, let's just say they were responsible for something major and we actually had to go investigate something big in burns, there is a provision in here that would vice versa allow each one of us to request reimbursement. Doesn't mean it's required, but we can request it. So, and that'd be a situation where me and Chance or me and the sheriff could sit down and talk about whatever. But I don't foresee anything major like that happening. They're a big enough agency where they'll be able to handle stuff pretty quick and get us back in the can.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to that, there was the homicide just outside of town a few years ago. In that instance, we had offered to provide like traffic control and everything of that nature too. And so in that instance, the town could, if their officer was being used and to assist with that, request reimbursement, and we wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
It was pointed out to me there was a provision in here, so
Yep,
appreciate you.
the provision and, just, and honestly, just good working relationship. We have a great relationship with these guys. This kind of just, solidifies that and just formally codifies it. And so this will take us, on another level as far as the service that we'll be able to provide. And we're just, we're excited for the opportunity.
I also want to point out that this would also help us during traffic tier days as well. Opportunities to help out with DUI grants and stuff like that. That, maybe we wouldn't have the opportunity to do. And that would be something that would be done through, I can't remember what.
I didn't see it on there, Jackie.
Different.
Why not?
Yeah, there you go. YDOT, that's paid through YDOT, so it's not anything we would use. But it would require some town resources, which I think would be a good thing to have resources to.
So can one or both of you clarify? So this is primarily a document about going one direction. Is it understood that you have jurisdictional authority in our town to start with? Like I'm asking, I'm not.
So we do have that, and that's.
Without an MOU.
Right, without an MOU. This gives them, yes, the opportunity to go the other direction.
Yeah,
So,
okay. I was curious why it wasn't more bi-directional.
yeah.
Okay.
Being a small agency, we appreciate the sheriff's department's support
Yeah, well,
in Pine Bluffs as well, and to be able to reciprocate, if we're able to do that, I think that just works well for both departments.
absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, through you.
Alex?
Is this the same one you and I worked out before?
Yes.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
If voted to allow us to have a K-9 unit, how would that work when it comes to if our handler were to be deployed to a call in the county? How would that work on a forfeiture of any funds or assets from that?
Yeah, so great question. So any involvement, you are, as an agency, entitled to a percentage of that forfeiture. And so really it depends on how many agencies are in that and if the federal government is involved in it, because they take a greater percentage. That's just their, yeah, imagine that, right? So they take like two-thirds, they take like 2/3 or 3/4, and then we get to split up the rest. But in the instance, it's just like us, because right now, if you guys were to approve that, that would be the only narcotics K-9 right now in the county. We are just down to our bomb dog and looking to grow our program, but we're probably 1.5 to 2 years out. So we would probably ask, in the instance that he was available, to come and assist us. And so with every one of those calls where his dog comes and is deployed and alerts, that's pretty much it, what we would need him basically his drive time, run the dog, and then drive back. For that effort, we would at least be splitting things, if it was just the two agencies, half and half. And so while our guys would do the warrants and the arrest and go to court and the forfeiture process, you would, just because of the way the rules work, at least get half. So for that, if that answers your question. And also too, we've extended out training. We do have several people on our K-9 team, several handlers. Their dogs have just become ill or retired, and so we have 5 handlers with 1 K-9. And so if you would like to attend, you're more than welcome to that training as well. A lot of great talent. We work in partnership with Cheyenne Police Department too, and one of their amazing handlers, Pat Johnson, is available and also extends that opportunity for training as well. So you'll have plenty of opportunities for those as well. So does that answer that?
Yes.
Anything else?
Any,
It's all about dollars and cents to get.
any other questions?
I'd just like to throw something in there.
We were down to just 2 radios, because one of our radios were gone on our vehicle. They donated one of their radios to us until we were able to get our new ones. Them just finally came in, that was 6 months ago. So, I mean, I just appreciate how the sheriff department has helped us out.
We're very lucky to have Laramie County, Cheyenne as well, PD, but especially Laramie County, you know, offering training, helping us out with equipment. It means a lot, so.
Absolutely.
Great.
See the hair policy, got relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Relax.
that's okay, it's professional.
Retirement countdowns. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Absolutely.
So, it's listed as a discussion. Is this an action item? Formalize?
It can be, unless you want to wait to see if the grant request that we have submitted to Tallgrass comes through.
No, this is
MOU.
for the MOU.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Yes.
yes.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between Pine Bluffs Police Department and Laramie County Sheriff's Office.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the MOU between the Pine Bluffs Police Department and Laramie County Sheriff's Office. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Chance.
Thanks.
Our guy with all the info just left. This is working out smashing. Back to the canine discussion, can you, I guess, this is an unanticipated cost on my part, and I'm not familiar with how this works, so explain to me the special duty pay.
I can explain that. The Fair Labor Standards Act requires that we provide some sort of compensation for time spent doing things like at-home training, grooming, feeding, cleaning up after your pet, or your canine, excuse me, and things of those nature. So we have, they have kind of determined, there was a study, I'm sorry, not the FSLA, but there was a study done stating that approximately 3.5 hours per week in regular pay would be a sufficient amount to cover that cost. So that is how I came up with the $5,200 that is listed here in the estimated annual costs.
How did you write it, the food and supplies cost?
The food and supplies cost was based on the type brand food that is recommended, a 40-pound bag at approximately 1 bag every 2.5 weeks. And the cost for that 40-pound bag, along with some general costs of, some things like, when I say supplies, I mean things like chew toys and rewards for a job well done at a scene, replacement leashes or collars as needed, things of that nature.
I do expect some of that. Some of this is generalized, every yearly thing. Those leashes, stuff like that, will last at least 2-3 years. Sometimes a dog will be a dog and get a hold of it and chew up a leash. But for the most part, some of this cost will be, especially on the food part, a little bit lower on that range. But we wanted to be.
Well, I was just gonna say, we have to remember that the dog has to be able to jump out of the car to go look for like 40 pounds every 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's on the high range.
That's fine.
For sure,
That's-
but
that's-
definitely wanted to be more upfront than not give,
Yeah.
give low numbers and then realize that we were wrong. So,
No,
I expect actually most of this, not most of it, but some of it to be a little bit lower, in actual annual cost. The food's gonna be pretty consistent, but the like leashes and the toys, I think the toys they're donating to us, so for this year and probably the next year, probably year 3, we'll look at replacing some of them, depending on how active he is and how much he chews up, whatever it is, whether usually it's a tennis ball or a rope or something that is his, reward. But some of those can last, quite a bit of years. I know our K-9 in, Cheyenne County, it would be about every 2 years, he would replace some of his old toys and throw them out. And you don't use the same one every time, so it doesn't get all chewed up. Tennis balls are pretty easy because they're easy to replace, so that cost would go way down if you use tennis balls, but I don't know what he's using right now, but.
can you speak to the emergency account deductible capital replacement?
Yes, I added that in there, in case, there is an accident with the dog. Our property insurance would cover that, but our deductible would need to be met, and that is $500. And capital replacement would be, us putting money aside every year, that we have the dog in the event that we would like to, once we retire it, to purchase a replacement dog, assuming that we wouldn't get another one donated.
So, I have a question that's not the most fun thing to ask, but anyone who's a pet owner has probably had to think about this. So what's the standard situation in a dog such as this? Like, what if an $8,000 surgery is necessary to keep the dog going? And I'm not talking about end of career, I'm talking about a year and a half into it.
I can answer
Those are difficult decisions for private pet
Yes.
owners.
If it's duty related, frequently, if a police department puts that out there, you would be surprised at how many donations pour in from a GoFundMe page on something like that. But if not, then that would be a decision that would need to be made by you, the governing body.
And just to go about that a little more, that's what Laramie County just had to deal with. They had a dog that he ended up with cancer, and it was gonna be like $12,000 for him to go to get a surgery that they didn't know if it was gonna work or not. So they came up with a decision that it wasn't, not that it wasn't worth putting it into the dog, but it was worth putting it into another dog that they knew was going to be all right eventually, But, I mean, the handler, he had a hard time with it, but he understood it, Sure. So, I mean, that's the whole thing, just like, but.
I guess I was just pointing out that it's a potential.
Correct.
additional cost.
And the single-purpose dog is not as apt to get, not say they ain't couldn't get cancer or something like that, but they're not apt to get beat up like a dual-purpose dog is. So that's the difference in their life expectancy. A drug dog, just a single-purpose dog, usually lasts about 3 to 4 more years than a dual-purpose dog does.
The way I like to put it is, a single-purpose dog is just a pet that can smell things. I mean, that's how they're treated. The dual-purpose dogs are, I mean, you have to keep them in the kennel all the time because they're gonna bite people. They strain all their muscles all the time because of training. They're held to a different standard of training.
Yep.
It's way above and beyond, and how Cheyenne PD and Laramie County does that, is their officers strictly K-9, and they don't go out and patrol. We don't have that capability. So, we would have to have a single-purpose dogs, they go out, they smell things, and they go back in. There's no, I mean, you wanna keep them active, of course, walks and runs, but you're not sending them through car doors, and the most jumping they're gonna do is in and out of the truck. So, I mean, obviously, something could happen and, end the dog's career, but it's kinda like an athlete, is how I like to think of it. you know, at some point, a big government has to make a decision whether they're gonna pay the athlete to get the surgery or cut them. And I think Laramie County just made that decision with Sergeant Grimm's dog, so, I think it's Sergeant.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
so, but Sergeant Grimm's been a good resource for us as well about, you know, the level of training that's gonna be needed. You know, Matthew's welcome if you guys approve this to come to their training, for free, so that's something that we don't have to seek out and go find. So we're lucky to have, I wish Chance was still, we're lucky to have Laramie County and Cheyenne PD right out the back door because Cheyenne PD's also offered some support as well, so.
And that's the way with these guys, because his research are free to come up there to go up. Usually it costs them, I mean, except for his stay, because it'll be like a 2-day stay for a research or whatever.
And I can tell you from Nebraska and Cheyenne County, the research is usually around $2,000, so, them offering to us for free is another great thing.
So this dog's 3 years old. What would you expect the service life to be?
Probably, I think around, the average, probably around 7-8 years old.
Yeah.
That's usually when you got your dual purpose in there too, you know, so, cause they're usually a little bit younger, the dual purpose dogs, they're usually 2 years old when they start out more, but a single drug, 3 years, cause they work them in, you know, compared to, so he could last up to, who knows, cause Highway Patrol got one right now that's 9 years old. And still going strong.
You could push it into double digits, but you're gonna be, I know the State Patrol's canine or Highway Patrol's canine deals with a lot of arthritis. Can still work, can still do the job, but it's a little slower. So, I mean, you treat it just like any other pet, you know, instead of going on runs, you go on walks. So, but that's the nice thing about single purpose again is, as long as they can walk and move, you can run them through a car, cause they're just going out around the outside. There's times where you go inside the car, not a lot, but a lot of it's on the outside. So.
Any other questions?
My only question is for Matthew. Are you ready for this? This is a big undertaking for you, so just wanna make sure that we're signing off on something that you're ready for, that you're looking forward to.
So at first, and I told these guys as well, that at first thinking about it, it was a little daunting, thinking about adding a bigger dog and more responsibilities during the week. However, the more I thought about it, and then more recently, I was thinking about it, and I'm definitely 100% on board with it. My wife is as well, and that was the big thing, is we've got a couple other pets, and as long as they all get along and stuff, we are 100% on board with it, and I am excited for the opportunity it's going to bring to me. I'm just out of academy. That's all the training I have as of yet. It's going to bring on additional training opportunities for me to expand my knowledge in law enforcement, and it's also going to build a relationship between Highway Patrol, us, and Laramie County as well. And I'm really excited for the opportunities that's going to bring on. So.
Well, it seems like you've been really thoughtful about it, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Oh, you mentioned as long as your other pets get along with the service dog, what if
Yes.
in the event it doesn't get along with the...
And that's one of the things that we talked about, that we're actually hoping to, if everything gets approved tonight, we want to go meet the dog, and we want to actually introduce our dog to that dog and just see how that goes. And I don't foresee any issues, which is, me and my wife both talked about it, and being a German Shepherd for one, and also not a bite dog, so it shouldn't be trained to be as aggressive anyways. I don't foresee any issues coming up with that. However, that is one thing that we won't be able to deal with if he does not get along with our other pets. So, but that would be something that we would know pretty quickly.
what's the likelihood that you can train them to get along?
For the most part, so we've got 2 pets right now, and they took a while to warm up to each other. But once they warmed up to each other, they learn to adapt to each other, as long as it's not an animal that's known to like attack other animals. I know for a fact that this one was on a farm for a while, and he got along with a variety of farm animals. And so just because of that, and knowing the personalities of my own animals that I have, I don't foresee, like I said, any problems rising from that. I do foresee that when we bring him home, it's gonna probably take a couple weeks for him to fully adapt and get to the point where they're able to get along real well. But I feel like after they get through that stage, they'll be good.
The only other question I would have is for Kim. So obviously you've assisted or put together some of these numbers, special duty pay being one of them. I mean, what does this look like in our police budget? Not the upfront stuff, the
Sure.
ongoing.
Well, based on the timing, I think that, it might cause our police department for the remainder of this fiscal year to possibly be a little bit over. However, we have saved in certain areas of the budget for a variety of reasons. We've been able to cut back on some expenses. But I think moving forward into future budgets, the one big takeaway I got from my discussion with the SO last week was the amount of funds that having a canine would generate based on its work. The amount that our department would bring in from funds and materials that would end up getting sold. If a vehicle was impounded from a drug stop, even the one that, the drug stop that Officer Kemp made a couple of years ago, the town of Pine Bluffs received a portion of the funds generated from the sale of that vehicle. And so the more calls, the more times that the canine gets deployed, the more opportunity we have for making a drug arrest and bringing in funds. So, for instance, currently the county now has, I think, a little over $90,000 in their fund from drug busts. And while I don't think we would ever reach that high of an amount, I do think that it would offset the cost of having the dog on an annual basis. And yes, the numbers that I put in are a bit inflated in some areas. And I did that also on purpose to kind of give us a little bit of buffer, since we don't know the true cost of having a dog.
That stop that Sergeant Camp made, $7,000 is what we recouped from after the feds and state took their cut. So, that right there would cover the year cost for that duty pay. And that's just on one stop. And as Chance mentioned, it's gonna take 2 years for them to get going on a couple of their canines. And so with us getting a little bit of exposure, I could see us, again, you don't have a dog to make money, but dogs do make money if you use them right. So, but they're also a good tool for recruitment, retention, as well as kind of a town mascot in the school system and stuff like that. So,
Anything else?
Nope, just think it's an excellent idea, so kudos to you three for getting it going.
I think we should have a motion.
I move to approve the police department's addition of a K-9 unit.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the police department's addition of a K-9 unit. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is visitor comments. Any-
Good evening, folks. I'm here asking that the council will please consider revisiting the snow removal plan for 2 locations here in town. After this last snowstorm, and after driving around town, I seen that the street by the Catholic Church was completely clear of snow on both sides of the Catholic Church. And the Assembly of God Church on West Fifth Street, on the south side, on the Fifth Street side, the snow was pushed all the way to the alley, which left a lot of dry street for them. And on the Market Street side, it was pushed further north so people could park there. But there's 2 churches here in town that haven't been taken care of, and it's become a hazard. The street on Pine between 4th and 5th, with all the vehicles that are parked at the apartments, all the vehicles that are parked there, and all the people that park at the church on Sunday, there's people getting stuck in the middle of the street because the snow is not being removed. It's a hazard. On the Methodist Church, on the 6th Street side and also on the Main Street side, there's people getting stuck there tonight, almost. And it was really bad on Saturday afternoon. I don't know why it can't be taken care of, but I'm asking that you revisit this to see if we can do something about that.
Well, I can, I can speak to this. We've had discussions about it. While it's not directly laid out in our plan, we have had discussions, and I guess I'd just like to apologize that it wasn't performed more adequately this time, but I assure you that we will add that to our list. I can speak to the Catholic Church. I have no idea, obviously if you go to some places in town where they have the ability to push snow all one direction, which technically speaking there, they don't have the ability either, but no one ever parks on the south side, so they push it all. If I was that homeowner, that wouldn't make me very happy, but that said, it gets pushed all one direction. Some of the other places, we don't have that ability, but that's not a reason to not address it. And so for myself, I don't think that's too big a ask, and we will.
At the Methodist Church, when Buzz cleans the alley out, that always goes out to the center of the street. And then when he does the west side of the parsonage, that goes out into that windrow that's in the middle of the street. And I think that's where a lot of the problem comes from. But that doesn't alleviate the plan that some people don't know how to drive around snowdrifts. But I can't control that. I had to help a lady get out. She was stuck in front of my house on Saturday afternoon. And I was able to help her by just pushing on it. If I'd have had to, with her permission, I'd have hooked onto it in my pickup and pulled her out. But I don't think that should have to be done specifically in those locations because of the amount of traffic. West 6th Street has a lot of traffic on it. People going to the school coming from Parsons, crossing Main and then going to the school. It's a continual traffic, not nightmare, but a lot of traffic. And some people just don't know how to deal with that snow. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or have an accident or whatever, but I'm just asking that you would revisit those 2 locations, please.
Yep. We have a problem with that.
No. Currently, churches and places of worship are listed as a priority 2. However, they are considered a priority 1 during Sundays and specific holidays when services are held. We can definitely just change that so that they are always listed as a priority 1.
Well, I don't think it's an issue of the priority. In my opinion, it's not the priority as much as you get so much foot traffic and cars there all at the same time that for whatever reason, it wasn't pushed up really tight in a windrow this time, but the windrow in the middle at those places make transference or walking across it or any other thing a problem.
Okay.
So, that's the most difficult thing for us. I mean, it takes the most manpower and equipment to come out and pick that stuff up. But that's what should happen. And unfortunately, no excuse whatsoever. We've had most of our snow this year has occurred either on a holiday or a weekend, and it's just a compounding factor, but that's not a reason to not get it done. So,
All right, thank you.
thanks.
So specify curb to curb in those areas.
Well, I think we can, windrow it as good as we can, and then
Scoop it up.
I don't know of another way unless, obviously they're doing it if they have a way to move it or some of those are tight enough that with parking on both sides, if people are gonna angle park, I'd like to say, well, we could cut a spot in various places for people to walk through, but even that gets somewhat dangerous. So, yes, I guess that would be the best scenario is to pick it up.
Kim, I assume that on weekends, we're trying to strike a balance between getting the necessary snow removed, but not making the overtime too excessive? Is that an issue?
While overtime hasn't been conveyed as an issue to the department, it is up to the department head as to how it is handled on weekends and holidays. So I think if we just specify, the council's desire on how those areas should be handled during weekends and holidays, that should suffice.
Well, and to that end, I would like to commend them on their job of getting the community center ready for Saturday's events. And, while that's no more a priority than the churches are for Saturday night or Sunday, I feel like we were out trying to get things done. That's an area we could improve on, so.
Yes.
But I thought we did a really good job of getting the community center ready for recreational events on Saturday. Thank you, by the way. Any other visitor comments? Department reports?
Nothing.
The airport board met last month, and we discussed a number of items. The need for more hangar storage space, or that there is an opportunity to possibly add hangar storage space. Potential project to replace the taxiway lights with LED bulbs. The AWAS, which helped me out, Kevin. Could you describe what that is, please?
Yep, it's the weather observation service, so it's the automatic weather that you can check with your plane. And that system was put in the early 2000s, and it's just getting obsolete. They keep trying to repair it, and it's to the point where the sensors are starting to go bad, and they soon won't be able to repair it any longer. So they moved that up on a priority do believe the money was allocated for that. They moved a couple other projects around to do that.
Okay. And that could potentially affect some new construction there as well.
Right, the next things, that we need, and they've moved it down the road, we've got the taxiway and a ramp that it's getting to be in pretty bad shape. This last year, they crack sealed everything and over sealed it, but they did not do the ramps or that part of the taxiway, because it's in bad enough shape, they're gonna have to go ahead and tear that out. And I think, did they move that up to 2 years, Kim?
So the AWAS is 2024. We will reconstruct the apron in 2026. We will seal coat the runway and taxiway in 2026 and overlay the runway in 2027. The town's match to the AWAS project will be $14,667, based on an anticipated total project cost of $366,667.
Okay. At any rate, there were a number of projects or potential projects that were discussed. A new hangar being, one of those, and also the subject of the hangar lease rates were also discussed at this meeting and the last one. Some other minor things that came up, but those are some of the highlights.
Okay. Ally?
Nothing new for me.
Nothing new for me.
Alex? Kevin, did
I
you?
would like to go into detail a little bit more if I could.
Sure, if you could come up.
All right, first I would like to thank the council for the opportunity to serve with the airport. I had some big shoes to fill and I've had a lot to learn. Give you a quick overview, or probably the last year and a half, what we've done. And I would like to thank the Public Works Department. They've done a really good job out at the airport. I realize it's not a priority, but they do get out there when they need to keep the snow off of it and the hangars cleaned out. And in the summertime, they've been doing a good job of keeping the weeds and the mowing and things done. Last year, when we had our grand opening, we did offer free airplane rides. We had like 125 airplane rides during that period. So we got a lot of people out there to look at it, and got a lot of good comments with our new terminal where it's opened. I've been able to attend the last 2 Wyoming Airport Coalition meetings, one in Pinedale and one in Gillette. Got to meet a lot of the aviation people in Wyoming, airport managers, that kind of thing, and learn the problems and the good things that are going on for the airports in Wyoming. It's helped me learn more about how the money and all that stuff works with them. Last December, we hosted a tour of the Wyoming Aeronautics Commission. So we had them come out. Mayor Fornstrom was there, and Kim was able to attend, plus several of our board members. And that was a really good project for them to come and see. A lot of them did not know what we had in Pine Bluffs. They hadn't visited our terminal to see what we had and the things that we're doing with it. We also leased out our big hangar to Mark Michaud, and I think the expectations for him have kind of overwhelmed him at times. It's been so good. He already has, 6 employees? 7 employees. Has been going full-time for about a year, worked part-time for that for a while. They're doing airplane maintenance and fabrication. And that kind of leads us into our next thing, where we want to, he's run out of space. So we need to work on some hangars. So one of the things that I've learned with the Airport Coalition, a lot of the airports are doing private construction, and so putting up their own hangars and leasing land from the city. I did get one hangar lease agreement that was Evanston had done, and I think I got one to Councilman Kraus, and I think I emailed one to Kim too, if anybody wants to see it, for how they're making their leases work with it. Their long-term lease, the average price per square foot a year is 22 cents per square foot is what they're paying.
For just the ground lease?
For the ground lease, right. And it's a 30-year lease that's renewable. So we would like the board, or the town council, to consider doing some construction. Mark, if you could come up here and kind of tell them what you're doing and.
Last week, I signed a contract with the state of California to start construction on reverse engineering parts for the OV-10 fleet. And I have a meeting with CAL FIRE next week about a project modifying the state's U-130s to convert them to firefighting aircraft. If those contracts actually take place, I'm going to have to hire another 7 employees within the next 6 months. The fact is, right now I'm out of space. It's becoming a serious problem at the airport. The AWAS was an obstacle we needed to move because the FAA puts building restrictions within a 500-foot perimeter of the AWAS. So currently, the ramp area that we can build on most easily is on the western side of the existing old T hangars. I've been working with the Burnett's and the Grosses about getting funding for a project to construct about 12,000 square feet of hangar space there. I would like to do this as soon as possible if we can make it happen. I have started a flight school out there, which we have 1 aircraft right now. We just purchased another one this week, and a 3rd that I am restoring over in Colorado right now. So the flight school is growing relatively rapidly. I'm trying to expand that department out here and would like to hire another 2 to 3 CFIs at the airport within the next year. But all of these projects I have going are really in need of more hangar space. I really need to figure out how to make this happen as soon as we can, because I've been turning down a pretty large amount of work out there due to lack of space. I could hire more people and have bandwidth to do it right now if I can get more square footage up at the airport.
So this is a single box?
What we're thinking of doing is 3 different boxes. We're going to do 2 smaller ones. Oh, Sean Thornton, I forgot about him.
Right, yeah.
There's another investor interested in the project who would really like to start construction this spring or summer if we can make it happen. He's already set money aside for it. But we would be doing 3 buildings, 2 approximately 3,000 square foot buildings, and then the larger 6,000 square foot one, which I would be leasing the space out of that larger hangar. And the Burnett's would also use it for leasing out for overnight storage, and they have leased out a PC-12 aircraft that they're using for sales on their dairy. Would be what that building would be used for. But currently, the Grosses, the Burnett's, and Sean do not want to start engineering until we can get a land lease agreement written, so they know what the conditions of the lease are, what the cost per square footage of land is, what the renewal period is, and what the building covenants are. Kevin and I have already looked into height restrictions with the FAA. Those don't look like they're going to be a problem. And we've already got the airport engineer to preliminarily approve this. So if we can get the council on board and get something written up, we're going to start moving forward with engineering prints.
So you have talked to the airport engineer about?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, because there's the lease portion, and then there's all the
Right,
FAA
yeah.
hoops that we
Right.
would need to go to.
Ultimately, the FAA has to approve of everything. Here's the,
We already had, last time we did the airport master plan, allocated that very spot for doing something similar to this,
Right.
creating box hangers in that location. And it would work best because we don't need to build any more apron or taxiway area if we put buildings up right there. So it gets us out of having to have the town cover any of the cost on their end.
Right, here's where they,
Yeah,
where they put it, so yeah, the box hanger, that's the original T-hanger, that's the new T-hanger. You could do other building to the east of the T-hangers, but I would personally prefer to keep those for T-hangers, just better situated. So they actually, originally in the master plan, had put box hangers in there. The AWAS, the problem with it is it's too close, it's actually too close to these also, but they're looking at moving it over here to keep it away from here.
okay.
And there's also a good number of people in Cheyenne interested in putting buildings up out here if we can get some kind of lease agreement drafted. As long as the town's comfortable with private buildings going up on airport property.
Well, personally, I am not opposed to that. The only issue is just getting Cheyenne has examples of it. If you have an example from Evanston, you've probably worked on them before.
Lots of them.
Continually. So, yeah, it would be my preference that we put a placeholder in there for the financial part of it, but the rest of the language, if we could, I guess you tell me about how long a process or in-depth a process that would be for you.
Yeah, not long. Yeah, Cheyenne Airport does, I mean, we've done a lot of them for them. There is kind of a, I think the larger airports are moving away from ground leases. And part of the reason is because you end up doing a deal with party A and then, X number of years later, they want to sell it. So you got a problem with that, because it's not the same person, and so you're dealing with different people.
Do they typically have
A lot of times you do. Yeah.
The governing body would have a right to approve or not approve?
Yeah, what we tend to do in the case of Cheyenne Regional is, we may go for a certain length of time, and there may be a forfeiture clause in there at the end of a term where that building actually becomes property of the airport. And then the lease rolls over from a ground lease to a lease of the whole thing. But that's a long-term deal. I mean, that's like 20 years or something like that.
I've already discussed that with everybody interested, and no one is interested in that. I don't think that we would be able to really get a lot of people to buy it if we tell them that they're gonna build a building and then 20 years it won't be theirs anymore.
Yeah, the problem with that is there are some complications with what are called the grant assurances. It probably wouldn't be a huge problem if it was an aircraft hangar. We'd have to take a real close look at what the possible uses of that are.
We would, as the council, actually like you to write covenants inside that lease agreement that restrict it to be used only for aircraft use, because we don't really have an interest in the airport turning into a storage facility. So if we could write restrictions in there that require it to be at least in large part used for housing aircraft or an aviation-related business, that I think
That
would
would
be
help
in
a
our
lot.
best
And
interest.
that's the way this lease from Evanston is written too.
Yeah.
It has to be aviation, you can't use it to work on cars or anything. It has to be aviation, or you can't have it. And then at the end of the lease, you have the option to keep releasing the land, for a period of time, up to the new leases. You can sell it. You can also be done with it and take your building with you. You have to leave the land back the way it was, or you can give it to the city.
Yeah, so. those-
Well,
that's kind of
I know
the-
there's been complications in the past in the town of Pine Bluffs with this, but I also don't think if we smartly go about this, that this is good economic development.
Yeah, it can be done.
So,
Right.
so I think our plan here is to, not to, we just have other things to get to as well, so I don't think we have an issue with that. If you've been working with the engineer on those hurdles, I think Alex is on board to kind of get some initial framework figured out, and then we could, maybe revisit the terms and what that looks like. And I understand what you're saying, Mark, but there's, you know, and I've had a lot of discussions with a few people there about this exact issue, and it's always a rub about when the lease expires and how long it is and what that looks like. That's always going to be a problem. But frankly, we can't write you a lease in perpetuity, that's just not possible either. So there's not that it can't be, correct me if I'm wrong, not that it can't roll forward, not that there can't be plenty of provisions in there, but I think you probably be hard pressed to find, I don't know what theirs is, but it's got an end date, right?
Yeah, it does, and it gives the options, I'd have to read through it again, but basically, it says that you have the right to renew the lease after 30 years, or you can take your building and go, or you can give it to the city. Or you can sell that also, then whoever buys that, then they would get the option to, renew that after 30 years.
And does it pre-specify the escalator in the lease, or?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe it does, yep.
I just have to be able to sell this from an investment standpoint. We have to make return rates that are actually going to be appealing.
No, nobody's trying to keep that from happening, but I'm just telling you right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to get someone to tell you could lease it for the next 150
Yeah.
years with no
I
end
understand
in
that.
sight. So we have to find a place in the middle that we can all be workable, and, cause I'm really excited about what you have going on out there, and I know there's interest outside of just yourself in, expanding the role of the airport in our town, so.
And, just the economic impact for now, I think there's 16 students going right now. There's been 2 or 3 people who've got their license so far, several people ready to do their check rides. The courtesy car, it gets used almost every day when the weather's good. Sometimes 2-3 times a day, so the restaurants, the hotel, there's a pretty good impact coming back into Pine Bluffs. More and more pilots are stopping, they love the terminal. Most of them in Wyoming are like a little shack with an outhouse. We have a beautiful terminal, and more pilots are just stopping in. So I think fuel cells are starting to go up. They were a little slow with the economy for a while, but fuel cells are starting to go more and more as we're getting more and more students. What did we put on that 172 in the last 6 months?
About 400 or 500 hours.
500 hours on it, yeah. So it's really going. So, yeah, anything we can do to keep the momentum going would be great, would be amazing, so.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Kevin, you said that the FAA would have to approve any
Right.
expansion like this. Would the AWAS kind of in limbo here, would they approve a new structure that's closer to the AWAS than we currently have?
Well, it's slated to be moved this summer.
Okay, so any construction would have to be after that?
I don't know, that's something I would have to find out about. And that's actually the 500 is from what Jeff told me, that's not an FAA, that's just a guideline. You can actually have them closer, but they want that 500.
It's a guideline for it to function
Right,
properly.
for all the sensors, so you can build closer, but that's their guideline for
Okay,
it.
thank you.
But yeah, everything would have to be approved through the FAA, so we'd have to get the engineering, and the engineer would have to be involved, you know, every step of the way to make sure, and then get all the approvals for the FAA, and before we could do anything. But the FAA, they've been very, in talking to these other airports around the state, there's more than just Evanston, a couple others are starting to do this. I think Evanston, he said they already had, like 5 or 6 buildings being built around there, so a huge interest in it, so.
And it should be completed this summer, so if we could at least get through the lease sometime this summer, I think we could start working towards engineering prints on the building, and I'd be looking at a fall construction if that's something that we could get pushed along in that amount of time.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. And in fairness to these guys, most of the problems that we have in Cheyenne are, FedEx, veterinarians, shrinks, I mean, they've got all kinds of people on that airport. There's over 70 leases on that airport, and a lot of them are commercial leases, but they really don't satisfy the standard of being aviation related. So,
Sure.
I mean, it's a little more,
A little different, yeah.
yeah, it's a
They're
whole
more-
different ballgame.
Some
And
more
if you're-
commercial type buildings, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and if you stick to, you know, aviation-related activities, it doesn't endanger the grant assurances, and then everybody's happy.
Sure.
That's the big problem, is we don't wanna lose that money.
Right, oh yes. Yeah, that's huge, so,
Great,
okay,
All right, thank
all
you.
right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Jackie? Kim?
In your council pack, I have attached a copy of the budget report, just so that you kind of get an idea of where we're at after the first half of the fiscal year, which ended December 31st. Sorry, it was my intent to have this to y'all in the January 2nd meeting, but some other things came up, so it got a little delayed. I think overall, our budget is right where it needs to be for this time of year. There are some notes that I put in there highlighted in yellow that, you know, discuss some items that are going to be reimbursed from either the project account or a grant in the third quarter, and those reimbursements have already happened, which have then equalized those line items in the budget. And then some other areas where there might appear to be a concern, for instance, in our recreation department, we have cut back considerably on some spending. And also to note that a lot of the costs for recreation happen in the first half of the fiscal year, because that's the majority of the time that our pool is open. And that we have a large chunk of our activities for this third quarter, and even going into the first part of the fourth quarter, the spending decreases considerably in that department.
I have a curiosity.
Yes.
So, the revenue from fuel sales, as long as we're talking about airport or not specified, I mean, I understand we have a budget. We're over budget on fuel purchases.
Sure, the revenue
Are
for
we-
fuel sales is currently at that 56,711, it's right above that section, the revenues.
Oh, I didn't see that right at the
Yes.
end. So,
And so, you know, what I would say to that is, you know, every time we fill that tank, we purchase, you know, we're filling a 12,000 gallon tank, so I'm assuming we're purchasing probably around 8,000 or 9,000 gallons at a time. And so the revenue from the sales are not realized immediately. They come in.
yeah, I understand
Once it's full.
that. Do we track that, though, to know that, you know, we don't have to get into a full-blown discussion on the exact number, but do we know the revenue stream versus the outlay for that? Do we have a percentage that we're trying to maintain, and are you aware of keeping us competitive yet profitable.
Right, I'm trying to keep within about 50 cents to $1 a gallon is where our margin is on it.
Okay.
Yes. And I can pull a full report that will make it probably a little bit more detailed from the QT pod system, which is our fuel dispensing system out at the airport.
Yeah, these numbers without knowing the fuel on hand versus where you started at the fiscal year, it probably makes it look, we probably have way more fuel on hand right now than where we, based on purchases.
Yes.
The numbers being that close together. Okay. I couldn't read the revenue part. Any other questions for Kim?
Given the number of surprises we've had this past year, I commend you and your staff for doing such a good job of keeping the expenses in line and following so closely to the budget. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. I just, kudos to the staff, you know, when I put out the memo that, you know, everybody needed to kind of tighten their belts a little bit, everybody did so right away, so. We're getting there. Inflation
else?
hasn't helped.
Announcements and meetings?
So your next meeting will be,
Sure. It's in there.
should I put the calendar? No, it's February. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 28th.
I have.
28th at 6 p.m.
Is that 6?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Yep. And I did, today, I've had several questions about meeting times and dates, and, so I did make a Facebook story post tomorrow. Since the agenda was at the top, I didn't post it on the Facebook page, but I will, just to notify people that we have officially changed that, and include the link for our YouTube and such, so.
Great. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, executive session.
Move to enter executive session regarding real estate.
Second.
Been seconded to enter an executive session regarding real estate. All those in favor?
Aye.